Good morning, my friends. This is Dr. M, Intermediate Microeconomics, and I'm going to do this very short video presentation to clean up on revolutionized theory where consumers are interested in services versus goods. It's a very expanded and expensive project, and thus we need to maybe focus a little bit more and clean up a few things here. So time value. I'm going to slowly incorporate time value into our discussion because for the remaining of the video sessions, we will move closer and closer to try understand what the time value actually implies when it comes to behavioral choices. So let's start. What we have done already, we have determined that essentially there is a full pricing model from the previous video recording, and with full pricing model we have household production function. And there is this notion of human capital. Human capital gently enters into this discussion because essentially it becomes the pivotal point upon which you can rest your hypothesis and look for data to support it or refute it. So we should start this conversation if facts speak for themselves. Political science may argue that they can, and often they make such statements in politics along with other statements that may require a little bit more validity and verification. And I'm just trying to be very, very nice to them. But in our world of economics, facts don't speak for themselves. One must have a theory to interpret the facts. You and I and 5 other people in the same room may have been exposed to the same facts, but we all may have different theories how to interpret the facts. And that's why facts never speak for themselves. One must have a theory to interpret the facts. Revolutionized consumer theory when it comes to determining that consumers are not interested in goods but the services that the goods provide. It was illuminated by Becker and Lancaster initially in order to understand simple issues that we cannot capture with a traditional model of price and quantity. Basically, we recognize that time is important. We can't ignore time. We cannot put that as a part of the residuals or a part of the ceteris paribus condition, although sometimes it is demanded. The other thing that we also discovered that goods don't provide utility directly. So when people go to the marketplace and they demand goods, they don't essentially demand as much goods as the services that those goods provide. So when people go to buy a car, they don't want a car. They just don't want to be where they are. We buy cars because we want to be elsewhere. We desire the flow of services that the physical capital provides in this case. And if you could take a pill that will create the perception of your travels through time, travel through overseas, and in some ways there's some virtual realities where people actually obtain such services of traveling to Louvre and some other famous places, maybe Niagara Falls, And those virtual realities, they do serve to a certain degree as a substitution. So if you have this pill that can create this perception of those services, you don't demand the goods anymore. So that's something that we want to keep in mind. And finally, do people demand ATM machines? No, they don't. They demand the services that the ATM machines provide. And that is the cash. Do people demand cash? No. They demand services that cash provides, and that's importing of different items into their life. And you can go on and on to understand how people think through when it comes to their participation at the marketplace. Now, that begs the question, make or buy decision. As we have already emphasized that our utility function now is changing, no longer containing choice variables, but rather services that those choice variables provide, along with the time component. How do we skin a cat to follow the single objective? For example, let's suppose that you want to have a pineapple today. You have different ways to approach this acquisition. One is you can buy a can with pineapple sliced along with a can opener, and that's how you can extract the pineapple and enjoy it. The other option, you can go to the restaurant and order some pineapple, and that would be another way to consume pineapple while pursuing the same objective. Or you can actually buy fresh pineapple at the store and skin it yourself, which could be a challenging task and could be messy as well. So the question is, which decision should you make? Which route you should take? And that type of the spectrum of decisions available and attached to every single type of good that is out there on the marketplace with different set of options available. So that brings us make or buy decision, and the answer could lie in human capital. So human capital is the learned ability to do things, cultivate in order to do things. So human capital should be treated as anything else, because it could appreciate, and when people go in pursuit of education, the only reason why they do that, the chief reason, would be enhancing their human capital, especially technical schools, when people want to become auto mechanics or they want to be licensed professionals. So they acquire human capital to enhance what they already have. The property of human capital, and here we start introducing the time component. The property of human capital is such that it could appreciate over time, or it could depreciate over time. So it could gain more as you age and be more expanded, or it could depreciate over time and lose value. So in much of the corporate world, as people approach retirement, there are certain packages that companies offer in order to push all the workers out from the workplace. because it's commonly believed as you are aging, becoming older, your human capital depreciates and you are less flexible to learn new things, you are less capable of doing things, your body is deteriorating along with your mind. So, and the response by the corporate world is due to the depreciation of human capital as you age. And unless and until you can convince your company that your human capital actually stay intact or appreciating over time, there is no reversal when it comes to a corporate company in pursuit of its profit maximization to push all the workers out in the most creative ways. For instance, according to the legitimate statistics and many research studies, people who reach the age of 50 have only less than 15% probability to retain the job before they retire. So the layoffs, whether they're volunteer or some other reasons, are huge. The turnover is huge once people become older than 50 years of age. So, and that supports the idea that human capital does depreciate and companies respond accordingly to that. So I always tell my students that when you come and when you go to attend the lectures and presentations, don't let your instructors dumb down the classes, and don't be afraid of challenge, and actually embrace it because it's good for your human capital. And in some ways, once you are a young person, you have neuroplasticity that allows you to fire your neurons at 275 miles per hour, that the signals travel through your nerve system to enhance your human capital like you will never have that chance before. And that could explain why children pick up foreign languages much faster, at much easier pace than any older adult. So the human capital is an asset that you want to guard very dearly, and you want to make sure that it's going to be enhanced, and you have to feed that throughout your lifetime. So human capital is what we cultivate. It's one option that you can influence that asset value. And the other option is often in scientific community, it's called accidents of birth, when in fact people are born with certain talents or inclinations of higher valued human capital. You know, some people have propensity to be better in composing music, or be better in construction, or be better in a variety of different ways. So it pays really well if you find out what is your human capital that came with your DNA, so to speak, with your birth. And there are ways to do that. There are different surveys that you can take, and to learn more about yourself. So let me do some applications here before we conclude this presentation and move on. The first question that I'm thinking about in order to apply this idea of human capital into practice, over the last 150 years, increasing number of women joined the labor force. And prior to that, it was common to have women that would stay at home and they would focus on what is called home production. Can you explain in some legitimate way, from economic perspective, what happened at the marketplace that pushed women into the labor force? Now, something must have happened over the last 150 years that would push women in at increasing numbers to the labor force instead of staying at home. So think about this question and think about not what are the consequences of such event, but rather what triggered such a change. Thank you, my friends, and we'll be back with next video, and I appreciate your patience very much.